I hope that God takes a nap every once in a while. He has a big godlike recliner, a big lazy boy.
Lazy boy. Heavenly lazy boy.
Heavenly lazy boy. Just kicking back. All right, well, that was a good nap.
That was a good nap.
Yeah,
right?
for him, it was like a million years, right? But for us, right, it's like, did you even sleep?
Yeah. What's going on in the cosmos now?
Welcome to another episode of The Table of Content, where we talk about all things WAOB Audio Theater. I am one of your hosts, Albert Saenz, joined with the very well-dressed Michael Steele. Michael Steele, hello, hello, hello.
Thank you, Albert. Hello, good morning. You ordered the perfect weather for today's conversation.
Oh, you mean the snow outside?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the first snow of the season here for us.
Yes,
So,
right.
I don't know where you're listening from, but we have our first snow of the season here in Western Pennsylvania.
Yeah, 32 degrees and it's coming down.
But it's a good snow, you know? It's not just a sloppy snow. It's not a blizzard. It's a good snow.
It's a nice, soft first winter snow. It's all sticking to the trees and cars and ground and everything.
Just about everything it's sticking to. What else can it stick to today?
Exactly.
My face, my clothes.
Right.
I feel cold. We are talking about episode 5 of Stories from the Tall Tales Club. This is another great one by Joe Potts, a very, very good and dedicated writer. And this is titled An Abominable Adventure. We go to the Himalayas.
That's right. Yes. And I like the prequel or the opening scene there where they're, again, sitting around and they're swapping whoppers, right? But this one, Colonel Crinkle is really at the forefront and he's trying to moderate. And I don't know, but it was this episode where I actually finally made the connection. You know, the way Joe has written these stories, they're always the people in the stories are always alluding to someone else, right? They're always recalling a character that we know and love. And it just dawned on me that Colonel Crinkle is like the big man himself, the big man in the red suit with the white beard.
But is he?
But is he? Right. You're right. You're left wondering. He doesn't outright tell you. You know, but anyways, I was picking up on that, and with this morning's snow and everything, and I was really feeling the Colonel Crinkle vibe. So,
just pull up in a sleigh.
That's right. Ho ho ho!
But it's a good point. Joe has sprinkled ever so lightly throughout all of the episodes, sort of these very light, somewhat vague Santa references. Mm-hmm. So we, of course, Colonel Crinkle, sounds like Kringle, talking about Rudolph, talking about sleigh, talking about a good dusting of snow. And we're still left wondering,
right.
Is Colonel Crinkle really Santa Claus? Will the real Santa Claus please stand up?
Right. It almost seems like a dead giveaway, but it's so subtle that it's taken me 5 episodes to realize, oh, Colonel Crinkle. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
So, we have here, we've been having everyone's had a chance to tell their story. And this is a chance for Pascal Beaumont to tell his own tall tale. But the intro is good. You're right. It's also a good intro because Beaumont and Ruben have major tension. Oof. And of course, we found that out from the first one, from the time elephant. And they're sort of going at each other's throats. And this is no difference. Now they're sort of exchanging places. And Ruben is just tearing into Beaumont.
Right. It's like merciless, right? Just, yeah. Yeah, and I wonder what the source of that is. Is it, yeah. Anyways. But
is it just friendly camaraderie?
I would like to think so. And we know when I was reading through that part, or when I was experiencing that part of their dialogue, I was thinking, yeah, there is you have to have a certain base level of relationship before you can kind of get digs in like that, right? And still be friends.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. So, yeah. It might be a testimony to their friendship at the table as well.
So we find out is this is again another sort of youth tale, much as in the last episode we had Lady Jane's story from the Halloween Ghost Rider.
That's right.
And she was a telling from when she was a youth.
Right.
This is when Pascal Beaumont was a youth.
Yes.
And he was sort of befriended by a set of explorers, a husband and wife team, the Grangers,
right.
Marcus and Melinda.
Right. Celebrity explorers.
Celebrity explorers.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the background, I want to hear that Mutual of Omaha, Wild Kingdom. Da, 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 da.
That's
right. But it's got a sort of a nice story. You've got a husband and wife who, have taken in a very young Pascal Beaumont to be kind of their ward almost.
Right.
And we find out also early on that apparently he was orphaned when he was an age. Talking about Beaumont, his parents died, and he was orphaned, and that they want to, give him a chance to explore.
Right. And we also find out that the Grangers were also orphans themselves. And so there's that kind of mutual, empathy or mutual compassion that they have.
I have no experience personally with it. I can only assume, what it must be like to be an orphan, especially from an early age.
Right.
And then you're sort of left to the system if you don't have family that can take you in.
Right.
They don't quite elaborate in the story as far as what happened in his youth, just that he was an orphan. The Grangers say, we know what it's like to move around from foster house to foster house.
Right.
But for all intents and purposes, it looks like everything worked out for Beaumont.
Right. Right. They sort of take him under his wing and they give him experiences for his, or give him opportunities for his adventure spirit. Right. And I wonder if that was also something, hypothetically that could have been forged by his orphan experience, that sense of adventure and resilience, right, in the face of the unknown, and always that quest of the beyond and accomplishing or conquering the heights, And so they take him on a trek to the Himalayas, which in and of itself would be the adventure of a lifetime.
Oh, sure. Right. I've only been on a few big mountains in the United States. I can't imagine what it's like to actually be in the Himalayas.
Right.
But the story kind of has two parts, I would say. We have this story with Beaumont being taken in by the Grangers, and he's telling the story of hiking, right? And in the Himalayas, there's going to be an avalanche. It's their lives are in danger. Right. And then the second part of the story, which we'll get to, is the one involving the Yeti.
Yes.
And that's sort of its own sort of encounter, right? As far as dealing with the Yeti.
Yes.
But before we get there, I wanted to sort of focus in a bit on a thought I had on an orphan. So I'm sure there is a big book of orphans who have done great things in their lives, right? So the point is, just because someone is an orphan doesn't mean that they can't do something great with their lives. In the story, right, we have Pascal Beaumont. This turns into this great French adventurer of his own.
Right.
And I was thinking, all right, what's another good example of sort of being an orphan and accomplishing great things? Because I think it'd be easy to say, like, I'm an orphan.
Yeah.
And I can't do anything. Like my parents died, and I'm not going to be able to accomplish anything great in my life because I have no parents, and I was left to the system, whatever the system is.
Right.
But then I was thinking about Exodus, and I was thinking about Moses, and Moses sort of, given up by his mother, right?
Yeah.
Left, and Pharaoh's daughter sort of adopts him, and of course, scripturally speaking, Moses' mom still gets to raise him a few years before he sort of fully is enveloped into the Egyptian world. But still, what do we know about Moses? Moses was orphaned, more or less, let go by his mom.
Yeah.
And then he is chosen by God to save the Israelites.
Yeah. Right.
And it's like, okay, so you have no parent, or you're left alone, and God decides, I'm going to use you to be my great instrument.
Yeah. Right.
And I think that that could be any of our stories, not that we're all going to go part the Red Sea, but in our own ways, that just because we are lacking something great in our lives, in this instance, a parent, doesn't mean that God has abandoned us, doesn't mean that God isn't going to do something great in our lives.
Yeah.
We just have to accept, right? Because God calls to Moses.
Yes.
And Moses has to sort of accept, and says, okay, I'll do your will,
Right.
Now, when a burning bush is talking to you, I think you probably do what the burning bush says.
Right. Take off your sandals, right?
Right.
But that's interesting point that you make, Albert, that the hardship of one's particular circumstance in life, or the circumstance that one is dealt, God can use as the condition of possibility for a greater purpose, a greater plan, and in the sort of secular world, you hear these stories of like rags to riches, people born into poverty, but then realize they don't want to be like that. And then they, become these uber wealthy people. And I'm not like subscribing to that kind of ideology, but there is something there like that you're onto with the way we as humans react to external circumstances, right? The external circumstances are just kind of given, but then with our interior subjectivity, we have kind of a choice of how we react to it, right? We can go sort of like the victimhood way, or we can go like, well, this is what it is, and let's make lemonade out of lemons kind of thing. But I really liked how you brought in Moses as an instrument of God, like God actually working as well in that negative circumstance for his providential plan.
Going to that first part of that story, we're sort of given opportunity to see a little bit of Melinda and Marcus, and they seem like a really fun couple. Yes. Sort of small jabs at each other, but they seem really devoted to each other. And of course, they both come from being orphans, right? So they have that bond. They found the thing to unite them over. And I really don't think, if I'm being honest, I haven't asked Joe directly, but I don't think this was a story about marriage at all. No. But I really enjoy a good married couple.
Yes,
it's such a refreshing element in a story. Melinda and Marcus, they've traveled the world together. They're adventurers. They're sort of famous, but this is what they do, and they do it together.
Yes.
Well, I was always behind you. Well, I was always in front of you. Well, not when, I was the one who was leading, right. But you can tell they're very devoted to each other.
Yes.
And through their devotion to each other, right? They have come as far as they have. Yeah. They've succeeded probably because of being very united, not just in similar passions, but just because you don't come that far in a marriage without having good stability.
Right.
And also then they can see together the opportunity to help someone like Beaumont.
Yes.
So they're united on similar fronts. They're very good for each other, and they say, okay, what can we do as a married couple, right? And all this just to say, this is a very good testament to what a good marriage can do, right?
Yes.
A good marriage based on good values can help others, right?
Yeah.
Because it's its own testimony.
Yes.
I have always seen where a good marriage is an excellent testimony. And you're like, gosh, I really hope to be, like, especially if they're older. You're like, gosh, I sure hope that, I have your particular marriage, 40 years down the road.
Yes.
That much sort of devotion and love and commitment and just sort of happiness. Because you could tell it's not a boring marriage. I mean, they're adventurers.
Yeah, they're in the Himalayas, right? I was just thinking as you were talking, great point, Albert. They say like the family that prays together stays together. I would also venture to say the family that camps together stays together, because there's nothing like kind of that self-inflicted hardship involved in camping or hiking that really kind of takes the veneer off of, your normal everyday niceties.
Right.
And you do have to love the person for who they are, really. And I mean, I don't have a lot of experience hiking or camping, but the experiences that I've had, I'm like, this is really good. Like our relationships are being forged right now. Yeah, they're getting stronger because of this extra hardship that we're going through.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah.
So as we move into the next stage of the adventure story, there's an earthquake.
Yeah.
So they're hiking, they're enjoying the great views, and they say, "What is that?" And they say, "There's an earthquake."
Yeah.
So now, peril.
Right.
And they have to try to save themselves.
Yes. Right. There's a low rumbling, and what is that? And then they also start to hear a shrieking sound.
Yeah, they had a sense that something was close by, and then they started hearing the shrieking.
Right. Yeah, there's that sense of like, if you've ever had that sense of like being watched or being followed, that kind of like something, the hairs on the back of your neck prickling, right? But then also the low rumbling and then an earthquake, like probably one of the manifestations of the worst fears for a hiker up in the mountains, right?
Right.
Is, a low rumbling sound, because immediately you think avalanche, right? And I can't even imagine what it would be like.
Neither can I. I've seen videos of avalanches, and it just looks like one of those forces of nature that there's nothing you can do. If you're in the midst of it, it's coming.
Yeah.
And for all three of them, it's coming. And they realize, Marcus and Melinda realize that it's a yeti from the sounds. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I know what it is." And
yes,
it's really funny, because they sort of go back and forth. Was it Marcus says, "I've never heard it before, but I've certainly heard it described. Do you realize, Melinda, what we're hearing?" Melinda says, "I'm not a rookie, I've been around too."
Exactly.
That is the unmistakable sound of a yeti. So, even in the midst of peril, they still find a way to sort of banter with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So now they've got to escape the yeti. They've got to get to a place where they're safe, because the earthquake causes an avalanche. So it's all just madness.
Right.
And the first wave of the avalanche sort of comes and sort of covers them.
Right. They get caught in the washout of the avalanche, and it carries them. And thank God they're not buried too deep, because, I've heard stories that if you get buried too deep in an avalanche, then you asphyxiate.
Right.
It's basically death by asphyxiation, Right. Yeah. So apart from that, thank God they're not buried too deep. So they managed to get themselves out. And then they also see that the yeti is also buried as well. And they also realize that Marcus has hurt somehow his ankle.
Right. And he thinks it's broken, because he tries to get up and then yells in pain. He can't move. But he still wants to be a heroic, manly man, as Melinda calls him, right?
Right.
And so he wants to try and, "I'll be okay, Right. I was once stabbed by a coral reef,
Yeah, exactly.
So you got to appreciate his sort of his will to try and be the man of the situation. But,
yes.
But he has to sort of acquiesce. And that's a good little point. We don't have to get too far off there, but that's a good point, is that sometimes we have to just accept the weakness that we have.
Yeah, right.
And, that we cannot be who we are all the time, even when it seems like it's the most necessary.
Right.
And that we have to sort of accept that. And he does. He's like, "Okay, well, I cannot walk on," even though he wants, he's like, "Well, I can't. So I have to let people help me."
Yes.
And, I will admit, I suffer from trying to do everything myself and not trying to bother people, trying to not allow people to help me. It's like, "No, let me help you."
Oh, yeah.
But you come to those times where you have to actually say, "I need help."
Yeah.
And that's a very humbling moment, Right. And especially in the Christian life.
Yes.
Especially in the Christian life, it's like you have to sort of humble yourself finally to God and say, "I need help. I am sorry," whatever it is, whether it's for, our sins, whether it's just for the life struggles that we're going through,
Yeah.
and say, "God, am sorry. I need your help. God's
Yeah.
like, all right, I've been waiting. I'm here.
Yeah. Right. Our there's a lot there that we could talk about, but that idea of someone once told me that when we humbly ask for help, first of all, we come to grips with the fact that we need help. We can't do it ourselves. And then when we humbly ask for help from others, we give them the opportunity to shine and to show love and to show charity. And so that's always stuck with me. Like, and I've prayed for that, like, kind of like, Lord, give me that awareness of like, to understand when it's time for me to like, okay, stop being the like, I can do it myself. Like, I was just thinking about our 3-year-old. Like, he's kind of in this transition mode where he's like, he likes to be helped, but then all of a sudden he's like, no, I do it myself, right? It's like, okay, that's good. That's a good thing. You're growing in self-reliance and you're learning how to do things yourself. But I feel like in our relationship with God, God is there as the helpful parent sometimes. We're like, no, I can do it myself. And he's like,
Right.
you really can't by yourself, but, I'll let you try. And then when you come to that point of like, okay, I tried, can you help me? Then he steps in. He's really a good father.
Right. Always a very devoted, always a very good father.
Yeah, right. He doesn't sleep. He doesn't need naps. He just, he's a good father.
I hope that God takes a nap every once in a while. He has a big godlike recliner, a big lazy boy.
Lazy boy. Heavenly lazy boy.
Heavenly lazy boy. Just kicking back. All right, well, that was a good nap.
That was a good nap.
Yeah,
right?
for him, it was like a million years, right? But for us, right, it's like, did you even sleep?
Yeah. What's going on in the cosmos now, right?
He's got his heavenly remote. Just a moment. Just gonna watch something.
Yeah, exactly.
So they have to now help Marcus, right? So so Pascal says,
Right.
all right, I'll take him. Melinda, you get ahead to that jutting out rock formation, and let's
Right.
get there. Where's the Yeti? Well, the Yeti's back
Yes.
there. Okay, well, let's go.
Yes.
And the Yeti gets himself out and
Yes.
starts to come after them.
Right.
And they're panicking now. So
Yes.
because they're like, well, the Yeti's coming. I can't
Right.
move in the snow.
Right.
Melinda sees like there's another avalanche coming.
Yeah.
And Pascal can't go very fast. And it turns into this sort of scene of chaos. And it's like, here comes the Yeti.
Right.
And then the Yeti takes Marcus. And we're like, okay,
He's done.
That's it. It's done.
He's a Yeti snack. Right. And yeah. And then we also know that there's an aftershock about to happen. There's a avalanche coming down, a second wave coming, and they're not going to make it in time. And so yeah, we're left thinking that the Yeti's just kind of made off with Marcus, and that okay, Marcus was a good guy, and that's it. Curtains for Marcus.
It's
Acquaintance, right? But we find out that the Yeti actually takes him to the high ground that they were searching for. So and then drops him off there and just runs off, And when I had, there's a video game where like you're a Yeti and you slide down hills and stuff like that. And I just had this image of this Yeti, like doing the Yeti run, off into the hills, just like bouncing, anyways.
Michael Steele, the Yeti video game.
Yeah, right. Yes.
Boop, 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 boop. Darn. Missed.
All right. Don't play video games. They rot your brain. But
Tetris won't. I don't think Tetris.
Tetris won't. That's right. That makes you think strategically.
Yeah.
Very good.
So the second wave comes. Everyone's on top of the rock formation.
Right.
Is everyone okay? Everyone's fine.
Yes.
And then they say, well, what about the Yeti? Well, I don't know. I lost sight of him.
Right.
But then they hear and see that the Yeti is further down and is trapped.
Right.
So now there's a discussion of, well, should we help the Yeti? No, I don't think we should. Melinda and Pascal seem somewhat hesitant.
Yes.
But Marcus has a little bit of a different thought.
Right. And Marcus, I think there's that sense of gratitude and indebtedness to the Yeti for him just having saved his own life. One good turn deserves another. And so he really feels like, no, the right thing to be done would be to save the Yeti.
So given that, Marcus sort of jumps to the defense of the Yeti, because Beaumont says maybe he's calling for his kind, maybe some other abominables will come and help him. And Marcus says he's not abominable in my book.
Mm.
And look around, do you see any other Yeti? Alone, Pascal. Remember what it's like to be alone and needing a friend. Right now, that Yeti needs a friend.
Yeah.
And because I think we've seen through history, I think we can even see references in scripture where we see someone and we think that they're a despicable person.
Yeah.
We think that they don't deserve to be treated with any sort of kindness.
Right.
But then something happens and you realize, wait, that person is still a person.
Yes.
Regardless of what they look like. If they look like a Yeti, or they don't, or if they've done something that you don't approve of.
Right.
I mean, again, Jesus is like, why are you hanging out with the tax collectors?
Right.
You know, it's like, because I didn't come
to save the righteous.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, he came to hang out with those who were not so pretty, right? He came out to sort of hang out with those who were sort of ugly in society.
Right. But yeah, there is something about doing good for another human person because they're a human person, and as such, they're a child of God.
Right.
And that's like the lowest common denominator, right? That sets the bar.
Right.
Whether or not they're a good person, bad person, right? If we're doing the right thing and we're trying to show them love, then that's all that counts in God's eyes.
Right. Right. And that's what happens here. So Marcus makes his statement, and Pascal sort of you're right and rallies to the occasion.
Yeah.
And he goes and we find out that he saves the Yeti. He helps dig him out, and then the Yeti goes about on his way.
Yeah.
You know, and then we come back to the club, and we return to, you know, sort of infighting between Reuben and Beaumont, and you know the disbelief and the trading of jabs, but you know,
and Colonel Crinkle's his wife's recipe of fruitcake.
Fruitcake.
I'm just like, that's, yeah.
It's been a long time since I've had fruitcake. But, you know, as we wrap it up here, the story wraps up really well. The story wraps up really well. So we've seen the Grangers and Pascal sort of rise to this occasion. They come together in the midst of adversity. The unexpected Yeti, who was actually there to assist, saving the Yeti, returning the favor.
Yes.
And we come back now to the club, and then it's just opportunity in this moment where Lady Jane makes this comment saying, and speaking of families, Pascal, we gather around this table regularly and share good food, drink, and camaraderie, or something close to it. We also share love adventure and its accompanying tales of wonder. I'd say we're a family of sorts, aren't we? And Beaumont basically says, you know, I didn't come here for friends. That's not why I came here.
Right.
But you all, this group, you are my family.
Yeah.
Right. Because he was an orphan, right? So he doesn't really have people in his life.
Right.
But it's this really sort of nice, warm ending that the sort of hard-nosed Pascal Beaumont and all of his French personality says, because you said it earlier, you don't really have a lot of emotion from Pascal.
No.
But he lets his guard down a little bit.
Right.
And says, this is family.
Yes. Right. Right. And right before that, they're seeking evidence for the truth of the tale, right? So where are the Grangers now? And it's like, well, believe it or not, they're on the far side of the moon, right? It's just like, oh, right. There's that wanting of empirical evidence to verify your tale, and it's like, sorry, they're on another adventure. But then, right, it is beautiful to talk about family and coming together, fellowship, right, and friendship. And fellowship is sort of the groundwork for friendship, right? and friendships are formed through communication, spending time with it.
Right. Experience, talking, sort of consistent opportunities to be together.
Yeah.
And you find those bonds form.
Right.
And even when you're not thinking about it, I think that you find that they get stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
Sort of the way that, because we don't know necessarily how long this particular group of Tall Tales Club members has been together. Maybe it's been 1 year, maybe it's been 7 years.
Right.
We don't know. But all that we know is that Beaumont feels inside of him that this is a family for him.
Yeah.
And that's such an important sort of recognition, right? The importance of that family element.
Right.
To help you in your life, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not alone.
Right. You're not alone. And I feel like, again, going back to the Yeti probably, who knows, lived a very solitary life, unless the Yeti himself had lived in community, right? But in that one moment of experiencing kindness and help from other people, the Yeti also had that experience of not being alone. But it's like that with anything. When we also receive help from a stranger, we have the opportunity to help a stranger, or even just help friends or loved ones, right? There's that sense of forging a stronger bond with them, which leads to community, leads to family, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I am grateful for the opportunity to talk about these stories. I think Joe has given us just a really good run here with the Tall Tales Club.
Right.
And I've enjoyed talking with them about you. Feels like we've sort of built our familial bond over Tall Tales.
That's right. Yes. And thank you for joining us at the table, right?
Right.
Pull up a chair and join us at the table.
We can all be family around the stories.
That's right.
So this again was a review of Stories from the Tall Tales Club, episode 5, An Abominable Adventure. If you haven't heard it, of course, you can find it at any of our locations. Go to our YouTube channel, find it on the podcast, find it linked through our Facebook page. Go to our website, weareonebodyaudiotheater.org. So it's there. Listen to it. Listen to all the other ones that maybe you've missed. There's 4 other ones, so it's a total of 5. Right. But we hope that you will enjoy listening to the stories from Joe. So once again, thank you, Joe Potts.
Thank you, Joe. And also on the YouTube channel, I noticed that there's a playlist there, and there's even previous table of content episodes from when we first started pre-pandemic.
Yeah. So if you'd like to fill up on the table of content,
that's right.
then there are more episodes. So we invite you to, and everything. We invite you to listen to everything that Audio Theater has to offer. We hope that you will enjoy it and continue to return to come back for more table of contents, stories, poems, scripture verses. We hope that you will listen to all of that. Michael Steele, as always, a great pleasure to speak with you. Thank you very much.
Likewise, Albert. Yeah, conversing with you is a joy.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you as the audience for tuning in. We hope that you will return again for another table of content as Michael and I continue to open up the stories for you. And until the next time, as always, be good, stay safe. Peace.
Peace.